Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Club of Florence COP27 Chronicles. We are here hosted from the Florence City Council in Palazzo Vecchio, and we have Cristina Rumbaitis from Sharm el-Sheikh at the COP27. We are going to cover what's happening at COP27, and I'm very honored to have as our guest Cristina Rumbaitis del Rio, Senior Adaptation and Resilience Advisor at the WRI, the World Resource Institute. Good afternoon, Cristina. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to join you from Sharm el-Sheikh all the way to Plaza Vecchio. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Cristina, would you tell us a few words about WRI and what WRI is doing towards climate change action?
Sure. So WRI, the World Resources Institute, is a global think and do tank focused very much on people and planet and ecosystems. We are working very concertedly for many decades, 40 years now, on climate change issues, on environmental issues. And we have a delegation here at COP working on the negotiations and working on a variety of initiatives, from food systems to local action to climate mitigation, decarbonization, many different issues.
Great, thank you very much. And now you are at the COP27. I'm sure you have been participating to many of those events in the past year. What is the sensation in these days being there? What are your expectations as well on this number 27 Conference of Parties?
Yeah, so this is a bit of an unusual COP. The focus has been on implementation, which I think is fantastic because we really do need to start implementing extremely quickly if we're going to stay within 1.5 degrees of warming. We also need to be adapting to the climate challenges that already exist and are already in the climate system and will continue for many years to come. And unfortunately, we're also at the stage where there are losses and damages that are being incurred by poor communities on the front lines of climate change. And we need to acknowledge that as well. The vibe here at COP, I would say, is cautiously optimistic. These are big issues that need to be tackled, and everyone here is advocating for different issues. But we had 100 plus world leaders here the other day, so I think that signals good political commitment. But we have yet to see real implementation happen, real money being put on the table. And so those are the concerns that many of us have today.
Thank you very much. And Cristina, we are calling you from Florence, hosted by the city of Florence, who is very ambitious in terms of climate action. For example, the City Council is going to implement a net zero program by 2030. So the topic that you are following are very interesting for the citizens of Florence and his administration. And Cristina, you have been working for many years with local governments and cities on aspects related to their climate resilience. So would be great if you could give us a very short description of the notion of climate resilience. What does it mean for its citizens
Sure.
in practical terms?
Sure, absolutely. So climate resilience is just adapting to the climate variability and change that we're living through today and we know will come into the future. And cities for many years have been on the front lines of adapting to climate change. We've done it for centuries. But now we have to take more concerted action because of climate change. And adaptation can be anything from providing greater heat early warning systems of heat waves and cooling shelters when those heat waves occur for vulnerable populations, to better managing flooding, which could be either by protecting wetlands and ecosystems around a city or riverbanks, or introducing rain gardens into cities, or in some places it means better solid waste management so that there isn't plastic and rubbish that is clogging up drainage systems and resulting in flooding and unsanitary, unhygienic conditions. So what adaptation means really it depends on what threats you're talking about and on the local system. So what might work in one place, one city, might not work in another city. And so we really advocate for locally led adaptation that is led by local actors, whether that's the municipal government or community-based organizations, or grassroots organizations, or the private sector in a city. In fact, all of those need to work together to identify the threats that are being faced and what can be done to manage it.
Thank you so much. And Cristina, could you give us some example? For example, if we think about a European city, Mediterranean cities, like many of our cities in Italy, what would be concrete and practical activities that they are already implemented or are programmed to be implemented in the future from a typical Mediterranean cities? Let us understand what that means in practice.
Sure. So I'll give you some examples from across the world. So many cities have been planting rain gardens to increase the water absorption of in the green space within cities. So it's visually attractive, but it also helps absorb the water so that it's not going and overflowing into storm drain systems. And that's a way to cope with more intense rainfall that many cities are experiencing. In the Mediterranean, of course, heat is a big issue. And again, people are turning to more trees, more shade trees, to be able to provide people respite from the heat, but also things like cooling centers, neighborhood programs where people check on elderly people, for instance, who are more vulnerable, or sick people who might be more vulnerable and susceptible to heat illness, and programs like that. I've also seen mental health programs being introduced in cities because the heat can be a real aggravator to mental illness and mental stresses. And so there's a variety of different aspects to climate change that we often don't think about, but there are pragmatic solutions that exist. There's also security challenges that often come with heat related stresses. And so I always advise, actually ask citizens, ask local governments what they see as problems related to different impacts and what solutions exist, because there's so much innovation and so many ideas that occur in communities that can be effective.
This is very interesting, and there is a lot that every cities and all of us has to learn in this perspective. And I would like to ask you, what are your impressions there at the COP regarding the notion of decentralization and empowering decision making and on climate action at the local level? Are those discussed enough and in a meaningful way there at COP? What's your feeling?
Yeah, we're getting definitely important traction on locally led adaptation. We will have nearly, or possibly by tomorrow, 100 different signatories that have signed up to these principles for locally led adaptation action that have been introduced in 2001. And these signatories include organizations, civil society organizations, climate funding organizations, but even cities and national governments are signing up to these principles. So we hope that the government of Florence might consider as well the invitation to sign up. But we need more than endorsements. We need more than people signing up to a set of principles. We need to see it being implemented, and we see funders, decision makers, governments be willing to decentralize finance and put decision making in the hands of local groups and local communities who often have the best wisdom on what potential solutions are, right? And this can be supported by national government, it can be supported by international science and local scientific resources, but really we need to see a whole of society approach taken to confront climate challenges.
Thank you so much. And it's great that later on during our panel, you will have the chance to discuss this topic directly with the mayor of Florence, which will be with us. And also he will be telling us firsthand what are his ambition on these regards. If you would have to advise the negotiators of the COP, what is the guidance that you expect from the convention to raise the role of local actors in climate action?
Yeah, so local actors have long been leading the way on climate action. For many years, there's been the climate champions, which has been, in the terms of the negotiations, non-state actors have really been leading the way. And for negotiators, I think we need agreements, we need finance, that supports those local actors in taking decisions. It is not just up to the national government, but local actors of all different varieties that can take climate action and are taking climate action. And so we need agreements that support them in doing that.
Cristina, what will be the major outcome if you could choose only one from COP27? What that would be?
I'd like to see adaptation finance scaled up significantly to be commensurate with the needs that we are seeing. Right now, the finance is only about 10% of what the estimated needs are, and it is very slow and difficult to access. So I think we need to scale up that finance dramatically to prevent loss of life, human suffering, damages to economies, to ecosystems, to livelihoods. And so that would be my top priority if I had to only choose one.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your opinion and your time. And Cristina, we look to discuss the same topic and give us ideas and guidance on climate resilience, locally led climate resilience. So we hope to meet you soon here in person in Firenze.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I look forward to it.
Thank you, Cristina. Thank you so much.